Just to put in my thing down.
Hi, this is Quinn with SF Indie Fest, and we are here with the filmmakers of Dirty Boy. And I'd like to go round robin and maybe everybody can introduce themselves, starting with Doug
Yeah, hi, I'm Doug Rao. I'm the writer and director of Dirty Boy.
and Graham.
Me, yes. I'm Graham McTavish, and I am one of the actors in Dirty Boy. Yes.
And Stan.
Hi, I'm Stan Steinbickler, and I'm also an actor. I play Isaac Wentworth.
Amazing. This is probably self-evident to everyone who just watched the film, but both very striking characters. But anyway, maybe we can start with Doug, and you can tell us a little bit about like how this film came about. I understand this is your first film.
My first feature, yeah.
Feature film, yeah.
It came about from obviously a very dark place. I remember just being upstairs. I'd come back from America. I was living in America for a while. I came back to my parents' house, and then I heard all this. I went to bed early and heard all this kind of banging and crashing downstairs, and they were having a party of some sort. And I just sort of thought, what if they were having this really sort of sordid party down there and sort of murdering people? I don't know why I had this thought. It's quite regular for me to have these horribly dark thoughts, but and that's where the initial kind of thoughts came from. And then when I started to develop it, it was during when the sort of Epstein stuff was coming out, and so I tried to incorporate bits of that terrible story into the plot, and maybe just sort of as that was like the through line for the story, and then obviously added on top this sort of mental illness and faith elements to it. But also I wanted to kind of encapsulate that within a genre film. Yeah, so that's where it came from.
And Stan and Graham, I'd love to hear from both of you about when you first encountered this script. What was it about these characters that you found kind of appealing and or uniquely challenging? Maybe we'll start with Stan.
Well, I think it's not a script that you get to play or even read. You know, it's probably a once in a lifetime thing. These kind of things. It's very rogue. It's very out there. It breaks a lot of rules, and that's exactly what made it super exciting. It combined a lot of elements of things I was already very interested in, and then knowing Doug for a very long time already, it was pretty much a no-brainer. So
And Graham.
Well, I mean, I've known Dougie for quite a while, many years actually. And when he first told me that he'd written this script, and the first thing he told me was the title, Dirty Boy. And I mean, it's just one of those titles that immediately intrigues you. It just you want to go, I want to read that. I do want to read that. What's it about? And once I started reading it, it was it, there's not many scripts, and when you read them, there's not many scripts that genuinely shock you, and in a good way. It completely held my attention. I read it through in one sitting. I found myself, because I knew the character that Dougie was interested in me playing. I found myself alternately horrified by him and strangely sympathetic to him as well, which I think is probably quite important to play those kind of characters. And I've played a few of them, these sort of rather complicated, that's a kind word to use for people like this, but that's what really drew me in at the beginning, was this very closed world. That was the other thing that I found so interesting about it. It was completely self-contained. You really had no sense of the world outside, and that was reinforced when we came to film it. The locations that we used really created this otherworldly aspect to the movie, which I found really fascinating.
Can you tell me a little bit about choosing those locations? I agree. It had this kind of expansive feeling, and yet you felt like you were kind of in a prison the whole time too.
Yeah.
So, Doug, can you kind of take us through where was it filmed And how did you choose these beautiful natural settings that were kind of terrifying at the same time?
Yeah, well, you know, it's amazing. It's right in the Austrian Alps, in a famous area, sort of south of Salzburg, and it's just these lakes surrounded. I mean, you see the movie that these lakes surrounded by like rock, like mountains that just go soaring up. You know, so you do feel as though you're kind of trapped in these amazing, massive valleys. And also at the same time, it's quite fairy tale. You know, they shot The Sound of Music there. I mean, it's an epic location. I think they shot Spectre there as well, a bit of Spectre, the James Bond movie. And just there's just something a bit romantically old fashioned and fairy tale about the place. And that's why I love it. And obviously Stan's from that region, so he introduced me to that area. And we were lucky enough to meet these amazing people who had castles. I mean, you know, and they let us use these castles, one on the lake and another one we used the interiors of. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful 4 weeks. Like we had blazing sunshine for 4 weeks. Everyone got on really well. The food was amazing. The wine's amazing. We had a great laugh for such a dark project. I
That's
think
true.
everyone had fun. You know, that was what you know. And we made friends for life, and it was great. A really great experience, actually. Really great.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. I think you touch upon something that is so important in films, independent films, perhaps more than any other, that you have to have a combination of things that it's difficult to define, but some of it's luck, luck with the weather. I mean, the weather became this sort of ongoing character in the movie. It was just like the weather just held still for us the entire time we were there. It was as if it was as if somehow we were being observed from above. It had a very, very kind of weird feeling to it. So there was luck, obviously kindness with Stan's friends and family and the local people, but people who wanted to make it work. And then when you combine that with a group of people who really believe in the script and work incredibly hard to make it as good as it can be, you need all of that. You need all of it because it's very hard. I mean, that's the only thing I've ever learned properly in the last 40 years of doing this is how hard it is to make and be in something that is really good. And just across the board that everybody in the show. And I think things like that, even though it's a very dark movie, I truly believe that when people get on as a crew and a cast, it shows. Even though, I'm playing an antagonist, etc., and all the rest of it. You need that kind of trust and care for each other. If there's one person in that group that's not on board in that way, you can tell. I think you can tell. So that was a real strength of the film.
Well, and also for me, I'm lucky in the fact that, I know these three actors, Graham, Susie, and Stan, I've known for a long time, and they're all like top of their game. That makes it so much easier when you're making, your first feature and you've got all these sort of stresses around you, all these things to think about that you actually, like at least when they're in front of camera, I've got nothing to worry about. I know that they're going to deliver. So that was really a blessing. And actually all of the actors that we got were just fantastic. Great actors.
Stan, I was curious about the way that you kind of saw the character of Isaac. There's obviously a lot of complication and nuance there, but how did you see him and how did you kind of see him change from your perspective as you kind of continued on with the project?
Well, it changed every day, really. I remember I remember 2 days before we ended, like in the Dr. Cronin scene, there were still moments where I was like, oh my God, yeah, totally. I wish I would have, known that when we started. So it's a never ending process of kind of learning and discovering and all these aha moments. But I think the main thing with Isaac, obviously, because it was quite daunting at the beginning because I'd never taken on anything like that. But for me, it was very important to not fall into a sort of caricature of these kinds of characters. You know, you hear mental illness, you hear schizophrenia. Um, that was, I think, a big thing for, I think, everybody. You know, you don't fall into a caricature like that. You know, because there are people going through these things. It is a very real issue, and I think I
Mm.
just tried to find sort of, yeah, human parallels within myself, and to just get as close to that as possible. Yeah,
Mm.
but the learning process was never ending. Um,
Mm.
and I mean, now I think Graham, you know this, Doug, you know this. I think if any project that you've shot a year ago, 2 years ago, you get all these ideas that, you know, how you would have done it
Sure.
differently. So
I
it's
mean,
yeah, never
I
ending
think we should
torture.
talk a little bit about your dedication to your physical appearance in it.
Oh,
Um, no, extraordinary, extraordinary. I mean, what remind me what you did? You were basically dieting, weren't you?
yeah, I was dying and dieting. But yeah,
Did you lose
I
20?
think
It was 20 kilos, wasn't it?
I
20
lost
kilos?
24 kilos.
Wow.
24 kilos.
Why
Yeah.
was it,
And
why
now I'm
was it
back in
important?
normal weight. So
Why
because
was that?
the camera adds quite a bit of weight, you know. So
Yeah.
it's, if you lose 24, you look like you lost 10. So
Was
um
that a direction that kind of came from Doug, or was that something that you kind of brought to the character? And why is that kind of physicality important to Isaac?
well, yeah, Doug, every morning he woke me up with like a metal whip, and just kind of every time I
No,
went to touch food, he was like, you
He
know,
no
loves
craft
it.
services for you.
um so 1 almond a day. No, I think it was important for me as well, because I wanted to do it justice, you know. Just I have this opportunity now, so why not go all the way? And it does help when you're trying to, I think, create a feeling, or be in a certain zone, or create a character. It's not just from within, it's also the outside, the physicality, that's important.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of, it was a mutual agreement, I think, like between me and Doug, that we think, and it's literally written in the script, he's a skinny guy, so I mean that's
And
um
it wouldn't have been right if you'd been, sort of this gym worked out guy
yeah, no,
on
Yeah.
camera. It
no,
would have struck me as very strange in a way.
yeah. And
So I
it
mean,
does something with you. It does something with you if you're
sure.
skinny, if you're weak. It does something with your, you know, with your psyche, you know. So
Yeah. No, huge respect for you for that. Huge respect. I mean, I get anxious if I miss a meal. So God knows what you're through. But
Uh, Graham, I don't know how many characters you've played that kind of inhabit just pure evil, you know. But I was wondering, what are some of the kind of things that you take? I mean, I noticed in the film, it's not, you're not saying that much, but the presence and the weight of you there,
mm,
pretty terrifying, you know, and everybody
mm,
just kind of sitting around kind of waiting for you to make a proclamation. So
yeah.
tell me a little bit about your approach to playing evil characters, or, you know, characters
Well,
at least inhabiting, you know, some level of darkness like that.
yeah. I mean, this particular character was was even for me was pretty dark. And I think, well, there's two things. First of all, you as the character can't believe that you're evil. So you have a very good reason for doing what you're doing, a very strong belief in your own reasoning. But beyond that, you also need for someone like this, I thought it was very important that he was in complete control. So he controlled everyone around him, um, and he also controlled himself. So that came, I find, stillness and silence, what is not said, what is implied. So he's not somebody that's, given to a lot of gesturing and proclamations, apart from when he's making some of his speeches. So yeah, it was about really portraying a man who was in complete control of the world around him. Um, and I wanted it to feel as if my control sort of somehow extended from me in this sort of field, like a force field. So my control goes right across the lake to the cottage. It goes everywhere. It's into the mountains. That's how I felt. So Yeah, and I think that's probably a trait common to people like that, narcissistic. They're very damaged individuals themselves, but I think it's a common trait among people who are really like that. I mean, Dougie references the Epstein thing and all the rest of it, and I imagine there was something that they're charismatic as well. So there's a charisma involved in it that you need to feel like everyone wants to watch them.
Mhm.
They need attention and people give them attention. And that was really something that I wanted to bring it across.
It's one of those sort of golden rules as well, isn't it? That you don't play the villainesque qualities of sort of something.
Yeah.
And I think what you did as well was like you just from day one played just utterly relaxed. Every single thing he does is just so relaxed and effortless. And I think the chilling things that he does are amplified by the fact that he just does them with such ease.
Well, it all seems to him completely reasonable.
Yeah.
What he's doing, what he's saying, what he's asking for, what he's insisting upon. These are reasonable requests as far as he's concerned. So he doesn't need to scream and shout. And, it's just, this is the way it is. And you just need to get on board with it. Otherwise, well, there's the alternative.
And you were charming as well. There were times when I thought, like, if I wasn't Isaac, I was like, oh, I actually kind of like that guy.
Hey, he's not so bad. I think, there were just scenes that were cut where I was tucking you in at night and things like that, showing a more avuncular side to my character that were just, sadly missed.
Sorry. Yeah.
Doug, I'm curious about some of there were so many little subtle things that I could tell that you were you were into this idea of kind of simplicity and elegance. And two of the things that kind of came to mind with that are the costume design and the score for the film. So I was wondering if you could, and props as well. So I was wondering can you speak to what some of the kind of cues you were giving? Did you work with a production designer? And
Yeah.
I assume you worked with a costume designer. What were some of the things you were giving to people along the way to be thinking about for visual?
Well, realistically, it was like, first of all, I wanted it to be timeless. I didn't want it to be in any place or any time. Hence the fact that we have this kind of strange technology in it, but we almost are looking at something that could be Edwardian, or I did give some references to Old West as well, that kind of Little House on the Prairie look, especially with those boxes and things. So a mix between that and something Edwardian. You can see that with what Graham's wearing and what Susie wears, and the braces and everything. But yeah, I wanted it to feel like a fairy tale place, a universe that exists nowhere else. So in that, and that actually gives you great freedom as well, because you can introduce strange technologies and things, and if the audience is buying into it, then they just go with it. Yeah.
And the score had a real feeling of being, in this area it's Austria, right?
Well, that was actually a string quartet. We recorded that in Vienna with a string quartet. Matthias Jakasic and played with these amazing musicians, and I wanted, it feels kind of baroque and a little bit. It's like a chamber orchestra, and old-fashioned as well. I mean, you don't really see movies that use that much anymore. It's either a huge philharmonic, or you've got these sort of digital, very underplayed scores. But I wanted it to have this sort of baroque feel.
Yeah, I think the choice to use, acoustic instruments and
all of I wanted no digital sounds in the movie. Really,
it felt like it was kind of organically coming from the environment, which was pretty chilling too.
Yeah.
So in terms of just what are the next steps for the film, how people can help get the word out? I know independent film is always a journey to spread the word. So please, can you speak to that a little bit and how we can all help support the film?
Well, I mean, you can always share reviews on IMDb, which is really cool. Once you've seen it, with you guys, and we'll be off to Berlinale with sales agents talking to people. So, the film's going to have a life, and there'll be more festivals and things. So, but I think, in the first instance, watch the film, and then tell the world what you think of it, in whatever way that is. If that's Instagram or IMDb or wherever it is, Rotten Tomatoes, all of that's really helpful.
Yeah, word of mouth.
Graham, Stan, and Doug, thank you so much for sharing this film with SF Indie Fest. Are any of you going to be able to join for the festival itself, or
I wish, I
Yeah.
wish, I really
Unfortunately
do.
not.
No, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I would love to be there. I really,
Well,
really would.
please continue to share your work with us, and we hope to see you at the festival in the future. Really, really great film, and thank you so much.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you very much.
All right, lads.